Okay, we can sit now. I'll offer some guidance around this other approach. So finding a comfortable posture for half an hour or thereabouts. Again, seeing that the chest is open, and if you're sitting, letting the posture be upright, the spine aligned. Relaxing any obvious tension. And again, this relationship of kindness and seeing practice as an act of kindness. So no demand, no pressure. Again, just finding yourself in this stillness posture, how that feels, a sense of contact with the ground or your seat. Just arriving again in this posture. And if it feels accessible, letting the awareness fill the whole body. The totality of this felt experience that we call the body. And noticing the textures, the sensations, maybe the movement of the breath. Just noticing what's here. And noticing what's the relationship to what's here. Is there a pushing away of anything, a pushing back, a rejection? Or is there a holding on, a clinging, a grasping onto what feels pleasant? And this can be very subtle movement, the push, the pull. Just noticing, can I feel that in any way with what's going on in my experience? Can it be felt in the body or in the awareness? Some clinging, some contraction, a tightening. And maybe there's a thought that's pulling me in, or that I'm trying to push away. At whatever level is available to your attention, just noticing this movement of push and pull. Am I wanting a different experience somehow? That's a sign of clinging. And maybe just becoming aware of the clinging and having an intention not to cling. Maybe that's enough. Maybe something opens, relaxes, releases. Or maybe it needs more effort to open. Consciously welcome, open, relax the tension. Finding where it presents in the body. Could be anywhere. And just relaxing as best you can, over and over. Is there a clenching of the teeth or a squeezing of the shoulders? Some tightness in the chest, all signs that there's some sort of pushing or pulling, some clinging, some rejecting. And can I relax that clinging? Soften the body. If there's a thought of, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not doing this right, or how is this supposed to be? Just noticing, is there clinging around that thought? Can that be relaxed, released? Wherever it shows up in experience, moment by moment, sensing and relaxing. If it doesn't feel like there is much going on or much clinging, just taking it to a slightly subtler level. Is there something I'm not quite seeing, something quieter, a quieter form of pushing away or holding on? And I get a sense of how it feels, this tension in the mind. Notice how it feels to be in a relationship of clinging. And to the degree you're able to release that clinging, notice how that feels. Just the subtle contractions, tightenings that come into the bodily experience. Keeping attuned to those tensions and just relaxing over and over, relaxing, releasing. I really want to become aware, to become knowing of how this feels, what clinging feels like, to become sensitive to that. Now, here's this thing in my experience that's prominent, that's pulling on my attention, feeling that clinging. and relaxing. You may find some creative way of your own to relax clinging. It's possible to be playful. Find your own way. What helps? What helps to relax that push, that pull, that rejection? Just letting it be, letting it go. Again, maybe a light noting, a reminder as you release, just saying to yourself, releasing, relaxing, if that helps. And if the experience is actually quite pleasant at times or for some moments, allowing that, letting it be. Welcoming. And if you want to switch into this mode of just welcoming the totality of the felt experience, opening to experience, or welcoming this particular arising, this sensation, this thought. So whatever's helpful, more general mode, welcoming, allowing, or specifically sensing in to the feeling of clinging and relaxing that. Is there a clinging to wanting to get this right, to be a good meditator? Is that going on at any level? Can that be felt into and relaxed, released? Clinging to the idea that it should be peaceful, that there should be no thoughts, that the experience should be a certain way. Again, tuning into that, releasing, relaxing. Just welcoming experience as it arises. Nothing needs to be different. over and over, tuning in, relaxing, sensing the clinging, pushing away, pulling towards, and relaxing. Softening, relaxing, welcoming, opening, and letting be. So we'll have another period now for walking, or whatever the movement period means for you in your situation. And the emphasis on exactly this, tuning in, whatever I'm doing, walking, where is there a pushing away of something? It could be very subtle. It might be that actually there's not much going on and I've got to tune in on a slightly subtler level. Can I feel that in the body, the contraction, the tightening towards the cold or the rain or the people or whatever it is, just relax over and over, tuning in, relaxing. Is it someone else on the bell or is it you again, Robin? Yeah. We'll come back in for just a short section before lunch at 10 to 1 in the UK. So I think be back around here at about 1:45. Enjoy. It's always a toss-up what to do in this period after lunch. You kind of hear the yawns. There's that period where it's so easy to have a little less energy, a little less attention. I've decided to do the kind of keep it here. I won't take it personally if I see people, although maybe I should. I'll keep an eye out and adjust accordingly. Hopefully what I've got to say is somewhat interesting or stimulating. We'll see. So what I want to talk about is more about this relationship between clinging, between the push and pull of the mind, and this word dukkha, the suffering, the stress that we feel in life at whatever level. And I think it'd be really valid if, for some of you sitting here this morning, there's a thought of, well, actually, my life is quite complex. There's lots going on. There's various sources of difficulty in relationship, in work, in whatever it is, the situation I find myself in. And this all sounds lovely, but sitting and just relaxing the clinging in my being, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to solve the difficulties that I feel in my life. And that would be valid, that thought to arise, that feeling to arise. And I'm certainly not saying that, sit here for half an hour each morning and relax the tension in the body and suddenly life will come together problem-free. And that's not what's being said. But there is a mechanism here that is so significant. And I would imagine way more significant than probably everyone in here would imagine. There's something in the mechanism of clinging and its relationship to dukkha that is deep and profound and counterintuitive and way more significant than you would imagine. I'm sure of it. So what I suggest is we can kind of start in a central ground. So for now, let's put aside the two kind of extremes. So this idea that everything is dependent on clinging. All of the difficulty I feel, all of the stress I feel in life is a result of what I'm doing in relationship to my experience. Let's put that aside as an idea for now. Let's also put aside the other side of the spectrum. which is actually more how most of us feel most of the time, which is that we're at the mercy of the conditions in our life. And it is the conditions in our life and the things that happen that make us feel whatever it is, X, Y, Z, some variant of suffering. And there's kind of, in a way, not much we can do about it. So on the one side, you've got that, you can see the two poles. Let's come in, let's drop those, come into somewhere more central and just be sensible about it. It's like, okay, clearly the stuff of our life has an impact on us, on our well-being. And there's people that live in horrendous conditions, and we're not pointing at them and saying, well, it's just their own fault. That's not what this teaching is saying. Like, clearly the stuff of our life has an impact. Can we also allow in this kind of, so does the way that I relate to it. There's relating to the stuff that's happening in my life. And some of those ways are actually going to increase the difficulty, the felt sense of problem and dukkha. It's going to kind of heavier my habitual ways of relating. And there'll be ways of relating that free that sense up a bit. Yeah. So, so somewhere there's this mixed thing, external, internal, there's suffering. It's like, well, okay, what's causing it there? Let's look at that relationship. Oh, this needs to be over here. Okay. Sorry, online folk. It's I'm not sure if I'm coming through. I'll leave it there. Is that clear for people? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay. So you may have seen this morning, you may have seen earlier in your life, in your practice, even in just a small way, that letting go of clinging, letting go of aversion, of grasping, feels good. Like that's the felt experience, what opens up, it feels some variant of pleasant, you know, calming, relaxing, opening. And no doubt seen the opposite. When we cling to something, or when we're pushing something away, when we're in a fight with our experience, essentially, when we're entangled, it actually doesn't feel so good. And if we haven't seen that, then that's something to pay attention to. That's something to become aware of. And actually, in terms of meditation practice, that's something that I would recommend always kind of keeping some part of the mind interested in. Like, how am I relating and how does that feel? What effect is that having to my experience? Okay, I'm clinging. How does that feel? I'm not clinging. How does that feel? So aside from any complexities in life and our circumstances, we can see just on the moment-to-moment level that clinging doesn't feel great. Relaxing clinging does. So the question of what's causing dukkha, well, even just on that level, we can see that clinging does cause some amount of dukkha. It doesn't feel nice. Now, if we were, I don't know, in a queue at IKEA, but you don't have IKEA in Oxford, do you? Who's in Oxford? I'm just speaking to people in the room now. No, well, what's a big shop that you might be queuing at in Oxford? Does anyone go shopping? Tesco, okay, you're in Tesco, thank you. You're in Tesco, you're in a queue, and the person at the front of the queue is arguing with the cashier, with the person at the till. We can all feel it already, we're tensing up. So all the judgments are flying and everything else, and time is short because we need to go and whatever, pick up the kids from school or go for our lunch date or whatever it is. So we're feeling the squeeze of time. This person's arguing at the front. There's queues everywhere. We can feel in our body that clinging. Yeah, the push, the pull with experience, we can feel it, and we all know it well. Like, the whole thing contracts. It's like, this can't be like it is. This has to change. I've got to go and do this thing. And we feel at the mercy of everything that's happening around us. We feel trapped. Now, if we are able to feel that in our experience, and through practice, through finding ways to do this, relax that felt push, pull, clinging, tension, tightness, and allow the clinging to subside a little, that's not going to do anything about the length of the queue or about the argument that's happening at the front or about the kids picking up at a certain time. It doesn't change external circumstances. But what we will find, absolutely, this is just how it works, how consciousness works. We will find that the sense of problem goes down. We relax the clinging. We're in the same situation, but it no longer feels as tight, as pressured. And then from that, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's nothing I can do about this. I'm a little bit more spacious, more calm. I'll just wait in line. Maybe even send loving kindness to the people in front of me. So be a good Buddhist, whatever it is. So I can respond to the situation. And that might mean like looking at my watch and thinking, actually, I don't have time for this. I'm going to put down my basket and I'm going to go and pick up the kids, and I'll come back to this later, without any of it needing to be a problem. The sense of problemness basically is the dukkha. And do you see how we build that ourselves? Our very aversion, our pushing away of something, our wanting it to be different, creates this pressured sense of problem. And we can relax that. Nothing changes, but it's no longer a problem. It might be challenging. It might be not the situation we want, but there's not the same heaviness. There's not the same problemness. It's like, okay, how do I respond to this? Yeah. And this isn't a one-off thing. Like I can imagine being in the queue and you do that and you release and you feel great. And then, 5 seconds later, you're just back and this person's arguing, why are they saying this thing? And then, okay, again, over and over, relax, relax, release. I don't know how, because I'm not sure, maybe this isn't intuitive. And I don't know if me just saying it makes sense. Does it make sense that aversion, clinging, builds problems? Yeah, yeah, great. That's really big insight to see that. So the question to ask ourselves in Tesco or wherever we are is this, let's just use the word dukkha if everyone's happy with that, just to have the whole spectrum of eness. Dukkha, when we're feeling dukkha, how much of that is caused by the conditions around us, the situation? How much is it directly caused by this queue and this person arguing? It's not. It's really not. No. How much of it is caused by how we're relating to that and are pushing it away and are wanting it to be different? And it's not to say that having no queue, having a queue is going to be more stressful than not having a queue and sailing through. It's not like the conditions don't impact, but is it the conditions themselves that impact, or is it that the way we habitually respond to things that we don't like is to cling and to grasp and to push away? And it's actually that then causes the dukkha. So we can see, and it feels clear in the room, aversion makes problems. What about the other side of clinging, like was brought up earlier with the like the nice stuff that we're holding on to or we're wanting that we don't have? I mean, there's that poem, I don't know how many hundreds of times it's probably been talked about in Dharma circles. So I'll just do it for the 600th, whatever. William Blake, I have actually written down, I can't remember it. He who binds himself to a joy does the winged life destroy. He who kisses, sorry for the genderedness, he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. Like a lot of wisdom in that. Here's this wonderful, pleasant thing. Holding on to it, it crushes something, it stagnates something. If we're able to just let the thing come in, come out, don't grasp, enjoy whilst it's there. And then this is this fine line again between allowing and enjoying and not grasping. There's something in that. It hurts us to grasp. It doesn't feel good to grasp. Even if it's something pleasant, it's the very grasping that make it unpleasant. Like we all have that experience in moments or days or occasions, events in our life that are meant to be the most happy thing ever, and they're so stressful. Why? What are we grasping onto? The expectations, the needing it to be a certain way, X, Y, Z. I couldn't find it. I looked in the suttas, the Pali Canon, kind of the oldest scriptures of Buddhism. Yesterday, I couldn't find it. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I came across, the Buddha saying, let's not only have compassion for the poor, let's have compassion for the rich, people that have it all. Because that's not an easy place to be. Having things and the dukkha of trying to hold on to them, to protect them, not knowing who your friends are, not knowing who to trust. So much dukkha involved in having stuff and needing to, make sure you keep it and that it's okay. So in clinging to something that we like, inescapably, there's the other side of that, which is the fear of not having it. Inherent in clinging to something we like is dukkha. You can't escape that fact. So this is really interesting. At least I find it interesting. I don't know if you find it interesting. Because what this is suggesting is, well, let's look. Do pleasant experiences, this is the way we generally think of things, pleasant experiences bring us happiness, just to put it kind of crudely, use that language. And unpleasant experiences don't, they're stressful. That's generally how we think of life and stuff that happens. Is it really that straightforward? Or can pleasant experiences actually bring suffering? Like we've just said, when there's clinging there, no longer pleasant. And unpleasant experiences always have to bring suffering. Or is it our aversion to the unpleasantness that brings the suffering? Again, this isn't to say, and it can feel like quite a fine line again, it isn't to say, just accept your lot, whatever's happening, don't try and change anything, just change your attitude. Which I know this is how this can sound, and I don't want to dismiss the situations people find themselves in and say, no, that doesn't affect anything. But what this is saying is, whatever that situation is that you're in the moment, this is a practice for in the moment, I can feel the tightness, feel the dukkha, okay, relax, release, open up. In that more spacious place, I'll be better able to respond to this situation. And yeah, maybe it needs addressing, maybe it needs changing. I'm thinking like, social justice wise, like stuff needs to change. We want more equality, surely, all of that. more equal opportunities, etc. Stuff needs to change in the world. But right now, the felt sense in the moment of dukkha, that we can, by reducing our clinging, we can reduce. And that frees something us to act in the world however we want to act. Silly example maybe, but I was in the dentist last week, and kind of lying back, and I had all sorts of utensils in my mouth pulling me that side, which is actually really unpleasant. Kind of, I don't think they were doing it very well, but kind of pulling, which is enough cause for fear. And okay, something metal there pulling that way, and something there, and then all these sensations and the light and some drilling, and it's all just kind of going on in my mouth like some horrible, yeah, whatever. We all know that. And I brought this in. I thought, okay, I could feel the tension and the tightness, and I relaxed that in my mind, in my heart, in my being. And then all of this stuff that was happening, it was just happening. Like, it was just kind of sensations. I was aware that this is not meant to be pleasant. Like, this is meant to be unpleasant. But the very fact that I had released the aversion actually made it quite pleasant. Because here I am, I'm lying, and I'm knowing this isn't meant to be pleasant, and that's making it feel more pleasant. Because it's like, I'm cheating. This isn't how it's meant to be. And so I was just there, and they were doing this thing, and it actually became quite blissful, actually, believe it or not. But there was something opened up because there was just no aversion to it. So it's important. It's little things, but this applies to everything in life, big, small. What's our relationship to this thing? Because that's key. That, for me, is what the Buddha was really pointing to. You know, are things, this is quite a deep question, but are things, is anything inherently pleasant or inherently unpleasant? Like, always, in all situations, this thing is unpleasant and this thing is pleasant. I'm not going to give you an answer, but it's something to think about in relation to everything that we're saying. So if we agree for now that this does have an impact, our relationship to experience has an impact on how that's received and on our well-being, how do we live knowing that? How do we live in accordance with that insight? Does it mean that we try and live a life of non-clinging? And, you know, as Diana, I think, pointing to, no desires, no longings, anything like that? Do we just try and kind of flatline? It's actually quite tragic. I thought I met someone many, many years ago on a retreat. It was a Zen retreat that I was accompanying a friend to. A youngish guy, and I think it must have been the beginning or the end of the retreat we were talking. I can't quite remember how the conversation went, but the gist of it was that he was, and he saw himself as incredibly equanimous. One of those Buddhist words, basically this, you know, fine with everything, no preferences, whatever happens, happens, no problem. Yeah. And he said that his wife was wanting a divorce. And he said, you know, I don't understand. I'm fine with whatever happens. Why? But my wife's saying, just give me something. Push back, give me some passion, give me anything. But he's just kind of, well, it's fine, whatever. You know. And, you know, maybe that is an archetype. Maybe that is something that draws people. Maybe that still draws him. Actually, that's the person I want to be. That is how I want to be in life. I don't want to be affected by life. No, it's one kind of image that we have of Buddhism and practice and things. For me, there's something missing there. For me personally, no, I'm not saying for anyone else. I mean, there might actually, in his case, I didn't talk long enough to, there could have been a very strong attachment, very strong clinging actually to not clinging. And what impact did that have in his life? But most of us, we have our relationships, we have our work, and we have the stuff of life. And we want to be affected, probably. We want to be involved and invested. We want to cling, essentially. Do we want to get to a place where actually it doesn't matter to us whether our grandchildren visit or whether our partner runs off with someone else? So we live in this strange place of like, well, hang on, Buddhist practice is telling us let go of everything, but actually I've got all the, it's like, well, actually maybe it's up to us what we choose to cling to, let go of. Maybe it's just a package that we choose to accept. We know that clinging will bring dukkha. It's like it's the same thing. There's something that I love and I cling to it, it will bring dukkha. But maybe I just accept that. It's like, yeah, cool, that's the package, I'll take it. But don't try and deceive ourselves that there shouldn't be dukkha in that. There will be. If we don't want the dukkha, then yeah, sure, let it all go. So it's a different approach to practice, to life, to Buddhism. Like, what do we want as individuals in our life? What do we want? And can we use this sort of teaching as a tool when it's appropriate, not as some kind of overarching life philosophy of just letting go of everything? And actually, some overarching philosophy or position in life isn't going to be liberating. This has to be a kind of, let's say, meditative, but by that I mean something quite broad, a way of relating, a way of seeing in the moment. That's where it's liberating. In the moment, to the degree that I can release clinging, to that degree, everything will open up. If I just have this idea in life that, okay, I'm not going to be attached to stuff, that's not going to bring any liberation if I'm actually still habitually relating to things in the moment with clinging. Yeah. So this is, we're talking about something, present moment. And this may be slightly different approach to, let's say, Buddhist practice. I personally don't care whether anyone here thinks of themselves as a Buddhist or not. I'm not invested in that, but let's call this Buddhist practice. And I'm happy to take on that label where appropriate. Is the way that we're approaching it now and kind of allowing in some desire and some passion and some all of that any less Buddhist than things we might have heard in other places of letting everything go? I would say absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's different kind of archetypes that are available to us. I mean, we don't have one here. Often there's, the closed eyes, economous Buddha, aloof, not caring what's in the world. It's like, yeah, great. That is one image. But there's something in understanding the cause of dukkha that is actually incredibly liberating in just being able to live whatever life we want to lead, aware of this insight, aware of what's happening, and just doing with that what we want. There's almost, can we see a larger freedom in that approach than there is in clinging to this idea of I'm not supposed to be clinging and I'm meant to be doing this, and that's the real thing. Maybe there's a greater freedom actually in choosing, knowing how this is built, knowing where suffering comes from, and choosing. My friend this week, I met up a couple of days ago, she was saying that I said I was going to be giving a talk or a day on not clinging. And she said, do you know about octopuses? Octopi. Anyone know which one of them? I quite like the sound of octopuses. Oh, that apparently, I mean, they can kind of wrap around their tentacles around anything and suction and all that, and hold on very tightly. Like, good luck trying to wrestle anything from an octopus if you're in that situation. It's so tight. But then also in a flash, completely let go. All the suction, just like that, and it's let go of. And she was saying, could you bring that into your talk? And maybe there's something in that. It made me think, you know, in terms of this approach, it's like, yeah, sure, cling to stuff and know how to let go, and know how to let go. Jurgen Klopp, I don't know if anyone knows Jurgen Klopp. He's a German football manager. Because there's been some clinging in my life around Liverpool Football Club. And he used to be the Liverpool manager until recently. But I absolutely loved it. I seem to remember one of his post-match interviews. He was talking to the press, and he's so animated on the touchline, and just you know, dancing and screaming and shouting at the officials, and completely invested in this thing. And then afterwards, he said, "Oh yeah, that's just for 90 minutes. Like, it's the most important thing in the world. Now, whatever, it's just football." I love that. I absolutely love that. Is there something in that that inspires us? You know, so to love the things we love and to know how to let go. And there's something in you know, this practice that we're doing today. We're cultivating that. We're developing that muscle, the ability to feel the clinging and to let go of the clinging. And then we can use that whenever we want. We can strengthen that, and that becomes very helpful. And I think probably leads anyway to a natural letting go to some degree in life as we practice this. And we really see over and over again how clinging feels, how it feels not to cling. Kind of that it gets into our blood and our bones. We understand something, like really just clearly. We know it deeply. We see where this dukkha comes from. And then in life, there's, you know, the baseline probably goes down as to, you know, how much clinging there is, not more openness. And all of this goes a lot deeper. The practice and the understanding goes a lot deeper. Because as freeing as this is, and without a doubt, what we've just been talking about is incredibly freeing, makes a huge difference in life. The Buddha didn't offer these teachings only so that we could feel a little bit less dukkha in our daily lives. The Buddha was pointing to something really quite profound about the nature of experience and how it's built and what it is. Discovered something actually very counterintuitive. So it takes a lot of practice, a lot of repeating, a lot of listening to the teachings, a lot of reflecting until it starts to make sense in our lives. There's something so radical that the Buddha was pointing to. Now, we've seen how, or at least talked about how clinging builds problems. In a way, we could say it builds experience. The more we cling, the more solid things appear. I don't know if you'd just agree with that now. Like if we're really holding on to something, like it feels real, solid, separate from me. The whole thing is kind of built up. And as we let go of that clinging, things become more spacious, more diffuse, less solid seeming, less separate. You know, we can find that in meditation, that even the sense of self of me sitting here practicing can start to get a little bit more open. The personality self, the whole thing that we generally take of as me, with all of the thoughts and this and that, actually that can completely subside, completely fade away in practice. And then who are we and what's going on when that's just not there? There's something in reducing clinging that builds less experience of this solid self, less experience of a solid body. That can become more diffuse. Can we, in our lives, is it possible to let go of all clinging so that nothing is built up? And the teaching that is quite common, quite popular, that many of you will have heard, is that mindfulness is that thing, is that place. When we're being mindful or bare attention, we're just kind of there with what's present without adding more stuff on. But the teaching is that that's the baseline. It's like, great, kind of seeing the world as it is. You're not building anything more on top, and that's lovely and it's open and it's spacious. But actually, that's not the end point. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha didn't say that we just need to be mindful and that will show us the truth, show us things as they are. And actually, we can let go of clinging to a far greater degree than bare attention does, than our kind of normal mindfulness does. That releases to a certain amount, which is lovely, and we don't have the kind of extra thought papancha, that Buddhist word for like all the castles that we make of our thoughts and the fears and the worries. That can all subside. But there's so much more scope with subtle parts of what the mind's doing, creating our experience that can be let go of, and then things fade even more. Beyond what mindfulness opens up, things begin to quieten even more. We say it's less fabricated. That's kind of technical term. The world, that sense of self, everything is less fabricated. The mind's not fabricating it. We see it's our clinging that actually fabricates, that builds. And as things become less fabricated, quieten down, soften, fade, open up, which all feels delightful. This isn't a kind of cold, disconnected thing. This is a lovely thing. Things open up. And in that quietness, we can start to pick up on subtler levels of clinging, subtler levels of way the mind is building this, that, and we let go of that. And then again, quietens, fades, deepens. Until actually nothing is built at all. And what the Buddhists call the unfabricated. The unfabricated. Nothing's being fabricated by the mind, by the clinging. There's nothing. There's no sense of self. There's no sense of anything. Some people call that nirvana. In a way, that's what the Buddha was really pointing to, is the end of suffering, with the Four Noble Truths, end of suffering. If you completely let go of clinging, not only suffering, but everything disappears. This whole experience of the world that we live in, that we take as real, everything disappears. It's not being built. This whole experience depends on our clinging for its very existence. Wow. Wow. But just to repeat, to finish off, we don't need to make that the goal to completely let go and to kind of abide in that place somehow. Like, you can't live life in that place. If we want life, we want all of this, great. Maybe there's an even bigger freedom and liberation in the embracing of that whole spectrum of fabrication, of the really built up stuff and the not so built up stuff. But we can see over time, what is it that's building this? And we can take control, in a sense, with the scale of that, with the slider. Build more, build less. It's up to us. Let's just sit for a few minutes to end that. So I have a period now for walking again, or whatever that wants to look like for you. And maybe being interested in, you know, what clinging, what movement of pull or push am I not seeing? Like looking out, where am I blind? Where am I not seeing? But oh, there's clinging here. Just kind of being interested in the experience. You know, maybe now kind of approaching, getting towards the end of the day, still at plenty left of the day, but at where the mind can think, ah, yes, and then I can go home and have my dinner and a bath and whatever it is. Like noticing, there's clinging there. Here's this thing. What if it just to relax, just come back into the present, just welcome what's here. Where's the mind going? Maybe towards the teachings. I don't like those teachings. That's not, no. Feel the clinging. Now that's not to say, you know, accept everything. Yeah, pick it up again. Think about it. Ask questions. It's not saying don't do that. But right now, in the moment, for this practice, notice how it feels to cling and notice how it feels not to relax that. Are you on bells, Andrew? Yeah. So we'll be back in here at past. So if you could ring, great, super. So we'll just take 5 minutes now just to stretch, get fresh air, whatever you want to do. And then we'll come back for a session of sharing questions, whatever anyone wants to bring before we close. So there won't be a bell, but if you can kind of just do what you need to do and come straight back, it's great. So time now for same as earlier. Anything you'd like to share about how the day's been, how the practice has been, which may or may not want or warrant a response from me? You're welcome just to share. Or if there's a question or a wondering around this practice that we've been doing that you'd like to ask. And I think we will record. Is it already recording? Or it is, okay, we're recording this. If you don't want your question to be recorded or your sharing, just let us know and Jenny can pause. And so that won't be included. Whether or not we use this for anything, I don't know, but just so we can do that. And if you're online and don't wish to speak, you're welcome to do that. Wish to, you can again just type in the chat and Jenny can read that out. So is there anything anyone would like to share or to ask?
Sorry, I mustn't hog the floor again. Just I was so aware of the inner dialogues going in within me all the time, the conversations. So when you finished on Let It Be, I was thinking, we should have a Beatles song in there. So the Beatles song was going around in my head. And then I was thinking, is letting go the same as letting be? Should it be let it be and not let go somehow or other? So that was something that was going on in my head. And then the other thing I was thinking of Simone Weil, who's quite a famous Christian mystic, because I'm really interested in East-West dialogue. So I'm constantly trying to translate concepts, which is not what I should be doing. But she says, as it on earth as it should be in heaven. So she says we shouldn't just sort of resign ourselves to things. We shouldn't just accept it. We should actually desire what has happened, because that is God's will. That seems to be going a bit too far in the sort of desire stage. Again, we've got that problem between desire and acceptance. So all these thoughts were going round in my head. And then the final one was to do with the queuing at the supermarket, which is what I've been practicing. And I'm getting better at meta because, you know, the person in front of me, they could have had a really bad day and such. But I mean, prior to that, perhaps it's because it's Sainsbury's and not Tesco's, but I have felt like killing the person in front of me. And so that's where sort of craving becomes violence in a way. And I'm very aware, you know, of the violence in me. And something on East-West, it was to do with Jung, I went to. The East person was saying, she was Japanese, that they would never kick the door, a drawer closed. They would never kick it. Whereas Westerners would often be tempted to kick something. And I'm very aware of that sort of force within me. So anyway, this is part of the practice of becoming, you know, less violent. And does that have something to do with craving?
Thanks, Diana. Maybe just to speak to the first part of that first and the language. Is letting be and letting go the same? And where does desiring what's happening fit in with that? Yeah, in the way that I'm offering it, they do mean the same thing, letting be and letting go. In a way, we're letting go of the entanglement with the push and the pull, with the investment of needing this thing to be a certain way. We're letting go of that, which is another way of saying we're letting it be, just as it is. Yeah. So that those two are synonymous, and it might be that one or other kind of works for you, for any of you. Oh yeah, that resonates. And I'd say maybe similar with this Simone Weil and the desiring. Maybe that's similar to what we've been calling 100% welcoming. It's like yes to this experience. Yeah. I'm not needing it to change, but I'm fully opening to it, just as it is. Yeah. In terms of the clinging and the violence, I mean, it's one thing, you know, the violence in ourselves becomes heightened in our awareness, in our consciousness, when we're trying to cultivate the opposite. So, you know, if we're doing metta in the queue, then anything that's not metta, loving kindness, for people that don't know that phrase, is going to appear more to us in kind of stark relief. it may or may not be that there was more there to begin with, but it's actually, I'm wanting to be kind here. I'm wanting to extend my well wishes. And so if anything else comes in, even the smallest thing can feel like a violence and feel like us being violent, because there's a different kind of sensitivity. So strangely, actually, noticing violence in ourselves can be a sign that actually we're becoming more kind. And so then the violence is kind of more seen, more clearly. In terms of the relationship with thinging, yeah, absolutely, I would say related. Like if I see that violence in myself, I'll be able to feel the tension, the tightness somewhere in my being. Okay, what is it to relax that? And again, it might be like with the supermarket queue, that the thing that's causing the violence indirectly, like maybe that needs addressing. Maybe it's kind of, oh no, it's fine. No, maybe it's not fine. Maybe it needs addressing, but from a place where I've let go of that clinging and can do so more wisely, compassionately, spaciously. Yeah. Yeah. Before you speak, Jeff, you're very welcome to. I'm just wondering first, if anyone who hasn't spoken yet today in the group would like to, yeah, we'll come back, Jeff.
I've just got a wondering about um, what do you think about a little bit of stress improves performance? For example, I'm thinking of athletes or a surgeon performing something that's really, really life and death. You know, so there is an attachment to that outcome. How does one cope with that?
Good question. I mean, I guess it's also another language thing. Like, what do we call stress, and like what hormones are going on, and what is that? So with the surgeon, yeah, I guess thinking about it in some ways, I wouldn't want them to be completely, totally relaxed, because I want them to be. But you know, what do we call stress? What do we call focus, like hyper attentivity? I mean, where are the lines with all of these things? If it feels like something that's uncomfortable, like you know, one can be focused and attentive and doing the job and kind of fueled by something that actually isn't stress. Exactly.
Okay.
So I guess it's how we're defining that.
Yeah.
But for me, like I'm really not interested in rules and like, oh, it has to be like this, or it has to be like that, or this is what you need. Like, why not just explore like what's helpful for you in your life, and becoming interested in this mechanism, seeing what happens when I cling, seeing what happens when I don't. What do I want to do with that? And, you know, that's up to you. Seeing when it's useful, when it's not, etc.
Okay, thank you. It's quite difficult though, isn't it, to think, because there are things I think about in my life I've got real big attachment to for the outcome, because they're important. So it's quite difficult to not go beyond that line of good stress to bad stress.
Yeah, maybe similar to the line between being concerned about something and it turning into just like worry and proliferation and just you know, and it's like where because if I just don't worry at all, well no, hang on, I am concerned, I want to think about this, but when do I feel that as kind of contracting and repetitive and actually just not very helpful?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Fine. You're redundant, Isabel, sorry.
Yeah, I was interested in your response to the question about the welcoming, because I can absolutely see that in terms of what one learns from the supermarket or kind of daily events. But it's much harder when it's a death or a divorce or something really major in your life, or some of the things that are going on in the world out there that are really difficult. I find that it's those big things are things I can work with, but welcoming them is another step further on from that, I think.
It is another step. I mean, actually, my dad died a couple of weeks ago, and I'm kind of right in the middle of that. And speaking with my mum and my sister about it recently, thank you, and kind of trying to say in a way that I thought might make sense about actually how I'm feeling the beauty of what's happening, as well as, you know, the pain. And actually, it kind of just got met with, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, how can this be beautiful? And that is how we relate to, I mean, death and lots of things. But there's something in the moment. So we're not talking about this big thing. Okay, I'm just going to totally open to all of this. So no, in this moment, with this bodily experience, and okay, for me, I see a picture of my dad, and something comes up. If I completely open to and welcome that, it allows me, even to feel the sadness. I'm not pushing anything away, but it comes into a different atmosphere, and it's completely possible. With practice, it's possible with anything. In the moment, it might be difficult to sustain over a day, over a week, over a life, like just completely welcoming everything. But in any moment, it's possible. And that changes something and allows a different sort of response. Yeah. To check if there's anything online. Just Jeff. Jeff, go on. Love to hear from you, Jeff.
Okay, so you've answered my question, which I've already popped in the chat. So I have a different question, therefore. So you've answered the question that I originally had. I also popped this in the chat as well. And I'll just read it out. How can wrong mindfulness prevent us from environmental and social care and campaigning? So, for example, I've heard another teacher in another place say that mindfulness makes us feel, or actually not just makes us feel, makes everything actually all right, which I don't agree with. It doesn't sit well with me at all. So there's a practical question related to that, which is what specific mindfulness practices actually hinder us with helping others and helping the planet. But looked at from a positive angle, how can right mindfulness lead us to environmental and social care and campaigning? And again, what specific mindfulness practices help? I mean, the critics of Buddhism is that it's otherworldly, and I think sometimes mindfulness traditions actually wander into quite a different tradition. Actually, it comes across as mindfulness, but it actually, I feel, is a kind of transcendental meditation, which also comes from the East. But the idea of transcendental meditation is that you rise above everything, whereas mindfulness meditation is being deeply in the here and now. But I do have this question about how do we exercise judgment and discernment about what mindfulness practices will hinder or help us in helping others and helping the planet.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. I mean, it is interesting. Rob Bayer, my teacher, who died a few years ago, he was the resident teacher at Gaia House for 10 years. And I think he was quite surprised in a way that people that would be coming on retreat at Gaia House for years, for decades even, and doing the practice and doing maybe that kind of the more sort of mindfulness of just being with what is as it's arising. And that not somehow naturally opening to concern for the world and not opening up into a sense of the wider picture and the wider suffering and the wider causes for concern, for action. And wondered, why is that? Because that is, with these practices, that is essentially what should open up. As things begin to fade, as the clinging becomes less, then actually the sense of a separate self also becomes less. But we actually feel and perceive ourselves to be connected, but in a very deep, profound, very beautiful, very real way. And we get to see that, oh, caring for others is caring for me. So even if we come at it from a kind of selfish angle, it's going, I'm going to care for everything because that is caring for me. great. I mean, better than not doing that. So really, in terms of right or wrong mindfulness, what that is, the only thought that comes up now is that if it's reducing clinging, it should go in the direction of, you know, more compassion, more connection, more wanting to be of good in the world. What can happen, I think, with mindfulness is there can be levels of clinging there that we're not aware of, and that's actually keeping us kind of stagnating at a level of thinking, okay, this is the world as it is, but actually the mind is, mindfulness isn't neutral. Mindfulness comes with a whole load of baggage, and that builds the experience. We think it takes everything away. It takes some away, but it's still got all sorts in the background kind of building a sense. And if we're imagining that there is a real world here that we can see with mindfulness, then that already is part of the building, and that's going to keep something in place and maybe stop the deeper unfabricating the deeper sense of connection and, you know, the opening of compassion, because it will just keep us at that kind of level where it's just like me in this real world and things being a little bit nicer or whatever. But I mean, I don't know what more to say than that, but it's a question that I think is really important, because you know, we need, as people that practice, like we need refuge and to come on retreat and do this and really find those resources within ourselves. But I believe personally that then that needs to see expression in the world. It's like, what are we doing, and what's happening in the opening of our heart if we don't care what's happening in another country or, you know, with the climate or whatever it is. So yeah, I don't have the answers.
But I like what you said before, which is that we must also be careful of not clinging to samadhi, to our calmness, because that would be another form of clinging. And if we cling to it, we would actually stay with the clinging, and perhaps a need to move more on to insight meditation. Yeah. Just one thing that crops up and is that, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh said when he, you know, was listening to the bombs going off in Vietnam as he was sitting in meditation in his monastery, you know, and he wrote down in the end that once there is seeing, there must be acting. You know, so he made a direct translation from insight meditation, I guess, into supporting others.
Thank you, Jeff. I think it's at the back first, and then over to you, Andrew.
Thank you. So I wanted to pick up on the comment about the grocery store scene and that tightness we can feel in everyday life. I think at least I have a tightness that feels a bit like at a bigger level within life, which is like this tightness about time and, you know, yeah, using your life well. And I think those of us who have experienced death very close to us, you know, your own mortality, you know how precious it is. I guess I'm looking for ways to both carry that respect for the preciousness of time and recognition of that, and somehow also just be in it and have this grace and calmness in it. And I don't know if there's something more than those everyday moments we could be, you know, working on to try, like, release that tightness about time.
Thank you. I mean, one thing for me, which might not be directly kind of responding to what you're saying, just to, you know, I don't feel like we need to be in kind of our lives. This isn't what you're saying, but just to kind of bring out this point of, okay, I need to be completely relaxed about time, or I need to completely in it. It's like during our lives, during our days, we'll be kind of coming in and out of different ways of relating to time, to our lives, to this moment, to this body. And actually, as we practice, we can cultivate consciously, purposefully picking up and putting down different ways of relating when they feel appropriate. We don't need to kind of find this one that's cruise control. It's like, okay, that's how I'm going to be. But actually, something needs to free up here. Okay, what can I do to free that up? Or, so that there can be a playfulness in that. In regards to time, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is answering what you're asking, but some questions I feel like are really worth grappling with. I really kind of, and it can be quite intense to grapple with it. Not to think, oh, this should be easy, or it's like, no, there's a question here that is difficult, and what do I do with that? And sometimes it can be really kind of cognitive. Sometimes it can be, okay, meditation. I just do something to ground the being and drop the question in and just let it sit there without needing to work it out, and just kind of let it resonate. See if there's some bodily wisdom in the silence that comes. I mean, in terms of using a life, I really value, actually, a position I'm sure lots of people do, Rob did it, which is to imagine yourself on your deathbed, hopefully like a long time from now, but kind of imagine yourself conscious, with all your faculties, and reflecting. So what is a good life? Like what am I pleased about, so to speak? Or what would I regret on the way? And it can be quite powerful in terms of what's actually important to me, and what does life mean, and what does time mean, and why am I here? And do I need something from life, or am I here to give to life? Like all of these questions can kind of come and circulate and resonate in the heart, and do something to our sense of time and life, in daily walking around. Is that okay for now? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, it is exactly. Keep the question alive, I would. Yeah. Go online and then over to Andrew. Sorry, Andrew, is that okay?
Right. Do you want to? Oh. All right.
Okay. You need this. Sorry, Andrew. Go exercise.
Yeah, this is from Celine online. She says, could you share the benefits of practicing even on the days where we have less capacity to go deep and really drop into the practice if we're ill or for other reasons? And that's one thing. And then the second thing, and what about if subtle fears around not clinging arise while we're practicing? What's a good way to approach this?
Just write that down. The subtle fears approach about not clinging.
Subtle fears around not clinging. What about
Yeah.
if they arise while we're practicing?
And the benefits of practice that isn't about going really deep. And
Even on the days where we're not feeling,
yeah,
where we have less capacity if we're ill or something else.
Yeah, thank you, Celine. I'm glad you could join. I mean, I think in these sorts of circles, there can be, like most of our culture, an emphasis on goals and endpoints, which some of the time is quite helpful and motivating, and I know where I'm going. But it can bring in a pressure and a kind of hierarchy of like, unless it's really deep and all this stuff's opening, then I'm not really doing it well, or it could be better, it should be something else. It can be quite subtle in our mind. That's just there beneath without maybe even acknowledging that that's going on, which I think is probably for most of us. I would say that the small things in life and in practice. I mean, it almost feels silly using that language. Like, what is a small thing? If there's something in my life where through the practice, some shift happens, some opening happens in, I don't know what language to use, like small, minor, maybe it's not so small, maybe it's not so minor. In that moment, in those days of no capacity, that just something becomes a little bit more easeful, a little bit more open. That's huge. I mean, that's significant. We're not talking about something small. So that whole kind of gauge of, you know, what's big, what's small, what's deep. It's like, if there's something here in the practice that's making a shift in your experience, great. And then we just keep doing that, you know, and that has its own roller coaster ride, and it's not a kind of linear path. And over time, we might be interested in certain things, open up certain ways, but it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be, you know, being the totally good Buddhist and sitting and gunning for enlightenment one sitting. That's it. No, that's not how life generally is for most of us. So I don't know exactly kind of what maybe what you're wanting or needing to hear in that situation, but I would really treasure the small things and remind oneself of those things as you practice, knowing that, yeah, this does open up stuff. I think what's also important is, you know, in this culture, we tend to really compare ourselves with others in a way that's quite well, dukkha bringing and clingy. How would it be to be in an environment where, yeah, some people are going really deep and stuff's opening up and there's mystical experiences and this, and they can talk about that openly. And then someone else here is actually just really struggling with the daily thing and this ache, and both are fine. And both are like, yeah, this is where this person's at today. This is where this person's at. We can hear each other. We can share. This is what practice is about. We're all interested in it. It doesn't have to be, you know, such a scale and a judgment and all of that. About the fears of not clinging, yeah, totally understandable. Because when it's not familiar, you know, what can open up as things fade and become more open. Like we don't have anything to cling on to. We don't know what that is. It's the unknown. We don't know what's coming next. Of course, fear is completely natural. I would say, I mean, some people just have a kind of gung-ho attitude. It's like, okay, I'm just going to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, and just whatever comes, comes. For most of us, it's like, no, let me just let go as much as this nervous system wants me to right now. Just let go a little bit. And you know, I've got my foot on the gas. It's completely up to me. And so I can let go. Maybe something a little bit nice opens up. Maybe it becomes a bit scary. Okay, take the foot off the gas, come out again. And maybe over time, I can get more familiar with that quieting, with that fading, with that opening up. And it becomes more trustworthy. And I feel like, oh yeah, I can let go into that. And then it, you know, happens at another level. But just kind of taking your time and listening to yourself and not going. But I hope I spoke somewhat to your questions. I don't know if you want to respond at all to any of that. Oh, it was in the chat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, you. Yeah. Don't know if anything's coming. We can come back if there is. Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my triennial one, dealing with distraction, and I kind of know, I think I kind of would say that maybe it's hard sometimes, but sometimes you have to just accept the level of distraction that's occurring. But what sort of, my question is more sort of technical about, in the practice we were doing today about kind of noticing clinging, and what would you say about how dealing with distraction in that kind of context? Is it that you kind of try and use the clinging or would it be more practical, or is it more in the practice to actually sort of fall back towards the breath or the body, actually kind of refocus and then notice, then try and then see if you've got back into a more sort of stable focus, that then you start looking for the clinging again? Or is it just a question of like you're on the clinging all the time and that's the anchor?
And by distraction, you mean basically having been taken off by
into a fantasy
thought,
or some other thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, either of those, and you can experiment and see what feels right. And I mean, by either, I mean either taking a different anchor. So it's like, okay, no, I'm completely gone. Let me just ground myself in a way that I know I can ground myself. So with the breath or sense of the body, whatever it is, it's like, okay, I'm feeling more present now. Now let's see if I can look for the clinging and feel the clinging, because the awareness of the clinging will become easier as things are calmer. So maybe it's good to, okay, bring some level of calmness in, and now let me look at the clinging. So yeah, that's totally valid. Or you can just stick with the clinging. So it's like, okay, I notice I'm distracted. Okay, right there. Is there some push or pull, like even kind of putting me back into that thought? Okay, can I just relax that? But, you know, whatever it was that took me off,
Yeah.
you know, I can straight away, like, no, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the clinging. Whatever happens, I'm just coming back to looking for that. I guess the third option is this welcoming.
Yeah.
So okay, I've gone off distraction. Here I am, moment of presence. I'm back. Okay, rather than the mind getting all entangled in the fact that I've gone off and all of that, it's just open. Okay, here's the experience. Let it be. I guess there's kind of three options, and all are fine. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll
So
just
Tina Harm would say that going back to the breath, though, wouldn't he? Or if distraction, you sort of somehow go back to the breath, which is that the same as going back to the body?
there's many different
Yeah.
sorts of meditation and many different ways to deal with distraction. Yeah, breath of the body are good ones. Okay. Time to wrap up. If there's anyone that's not quite sure whether they want to say something or been sitting and holding and may find it a little bit uncomfortable to speak in the space, I would encourage you to step forward and say it. We're done. Super. I think Isabel might offer some closing housekeeping-y stuff, and then I'll just have a couple of minutes at the end to close. Just it. Thank you for your questions. Are there others in the team? Yes, and to everyone else in the team, amazing to put these on. Just two brief things from what Isabel said. If you don't know Zohar, who's running the next of these, I heartily recommend coming. She's fantastic. She's my mentor. She embodies generosity and dharma and compassion beautifully. Wonderful woman, human being. And the other thing is my teacher that I mentioned, Rob Babea, there's a foundation that looks after his legacy now, the Hermes Armara Foundation. And I've left on the table, there's some postcards with details about that and his particular approach, if you're interested. Great. Should we have a couple of minutes just to finish off? And I invite you now to, as best as you can, let go of everything that we've been talking about. Just simply being in the body, in this moment. And the simplicity of that. aware of the breath, aware of the contact that you're making with your seat or the ground. And I'll invite us to offer up the benefits, the fruits, the merits of our practice together today. If there are any blessings that come from that. May they somehow, in this mysterious, interconnected web of life, may they benefit all beings. The fruits of our practice, of our attention, of our efforts. May it ripple out. May it go towards somehow all beings experiencing freedom. Deep freedom. Thank you, everyone, for your efforts and attention. Practice well.